Fantastic. So we will make a start. So welcome to our Lunch and Learn webinar series, where we tell you about what's going on here at Compleat and how you can get the most out of your iCompleat subscription. Today's session, we're going to be looking at a new tool that has recently come out with regards to workflows. It is the workflow, or rather the concept of the workflow selector. So we'll be going through that. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to thank Enterprise Rent-A-Car for sponsoring today's Lunch and Learn. Enterprise's local coverage really sets them apart. With over 450 branches across the UK, they're within 10 kilometres of 8 out of 10 people, making it easy to get the vehicles you need exactly when you need them. Enterprise works with thousands of small and medium-sized businesses like yours, helping them grow through smart, flexible mobility solutions. For many of you, mobility evolves over time and it's often managed alongside someone's day job. But when approached strategically, it can support scalability, efficiency, and cost control. Whether it's long-term hire and influx in seasonal demand or managing last-minute business needs, Enterprise helps take the stress and risk out of mobility so you can stay focused on what you do best. More information can be found in the business section at enterprise.co.uk. So thank you ever so much to Enterprise. So today's agenda, we are going to be introducing the new tool, just talking about how it can help positively impact workflows and take some of the decision processes away from end users. We'll obviously go through the demo, showing that to you. We'll then have a little look at the ecosystem, and I will then open the floor up to any questions and hopefully be able to provide some answers for you. This is me. I'm a software consultant at Compleat. I've been here for over 7 years now, and I have no doubt spoken to most of you at some point, so a welcome, and those who I haven't, hopefully I'll speak to you soon. Just some logistics with regards to the session. Obviously you'll find that all your microphones are muted. If you could leave them muted just for the duration of the session, that'd be great. What you should find on the window for the session, for the team session, is a Q&A box. If you haven't got any questions, do feel free to pop those into there, and we'll go through those at the end of the session. And we're recording the session. A link to the session will be sent out, and it'll also be posted up on the support site. So the benefits of the new tool. So it's an automatic approval selector. So when we go through the demo, I'll be showing you how workflows would typically or could sometimes look for a customer. And then I'll be showing you the tool and then how it will allow you to literally just have one button that the users have to select. And that obviously is taking the decision making out of the approver's hands. And this can obviously reduce errors, things being submitted to the wrong workflow. It's speeding up those approvals, and it is super easy to configure, which you'll be pleased to know. So let's go and have a look at this. It's a new tool that has come out. So I'm just going to get myself logged in to my demo system, and just bear with me. So I'm going to be using my demo site that I normally do for these sessions. So you will see a whole load of different functionality in there, which you may or may not have, but obviously we've got existing logins to cover it. So I'm in my demo site now. Just to give you an idea of how how systems could probably look at the moment, if I go into invoice processing, and if I call up an invoice from the unprocessed tray, obviously it'd be AP operators responsibility to code invoice, etc., do any matching, so on and so forth. We would have the option to apply a default for the workflow to tell the system which workflow to try and automatically submit that to. However, what that would still also do is present the users with a list like this. So if they were to click on submit, they would be looking to manually choose which workflow it needs to go to. And this is where some of the issues with accuracy, etc., can come from, with relying on users to choose the correct workflow. Now, one of the previous workflow sessions we did talked about condensing all of these workflows into one super workflow where you'd have everything within there, but obviously caveat being that it then potentially would increase an admin overhead because you've then got a bigger workflow to go through. So it was kind of at that point in time, it was like a trade-off. Do we have a big workflow that's potentially going to be a little bit difficult to manage, or do we have individual workflows and have to rely on users to choose the correct one? And this is where the selector will come in. So again, before I switch on this new funky piece of functionality, I will just show you the configuration side. And if I go to workflows, this is how it would look. So we'd have our orders workflow, we'd have probably our catch-all or error workflow for all transaction types, and then we'd have all of these for invoices and credit notes. And in this current example that I've got, we'd have to go into each workflow, make any amendments, etc. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to activate this new selectors feature. Now for the time being, if you would like to activate the selector functionality, it is a global setting, so it will be applied across the board, and you would immediately have to do some config to enable it to work. So if you do want to do it, maybe choose a quiet period when you're not going to cause too much disruption to the business, but we'll obviously go through what additional config would be needed now. The other thing to consider is that the setting itself is behind a flag which is currently outside of the system. So if you'd like to activate it, just drop support a note, ask them if they can activate the selector functionality for you, and they'll happily do that. There are plans to move it into the configuration side. For those who have admin and config access, you would have noticed there's a product features tile, and eventually the selector option will be sitting in there with a toggle switch. But for the time being, because it is relatively new, if you'd like to have this selector functionality, just give support a call and they will activate it for you. Now, whilst I've been going on about all of that, I have activated the new workflow functionality, and what I'll now find if I go into workflows is that the screen has now changed in its appearance. I've got a drop down field up at the top where it's showing me by default all transaction types, and there's my all transaction types workflow. If I choose invoices and credit notes, you'll see that I've got all of my invoice and credit note workflow still here, but I've now got these three lines, and what I can effectively do is move these and drag them to a position. Now, the reason it's allowing me to do that is now because within each workflow, sitting at the top, I've got a configure criteria option. And so what I'm able to do is to tell the system when to use this PO match workflow. And what I can do is I can go into configure criteria, and in true Blue Peter fashion, I've already got one I've prepared earlier where I'm telling the system if the header matching status is equal to matched, overmatch, or part match, then run this workflow where it's going to the order creator. So that's kind of our pseudo receipting route that we would typically advise. If I go back to the main screen, that's sitting at the top of the workflow, and so, or rather the selector. So what will happen is if a transaction is an invoice or a credit note, the user will be able to click on what is now going to be a submit button, and it will start to go through each of these workflows. And so my first one is saying if the match status is either that match, part match, or overmatch, then it will run my PO match workflow. If it's not one of those statuses, it's going to move on to the next one. So this is the piece of work that you would have to do if you did activate the new selector functionality, is going into the workflows and stating the criteria under which this workflow should be run. So if I put into here to say if the layout, for example, because I can base it on layout, is equal to invoices, or I could go for particular supplier is equal to, and then choose my supplier like so. And again, that's stating the criteria under which this workflow should then run. And again, the workflow itself that follows is exactly the same as it always has been. It will visit each node, see if it needs to contact the users within there. If it does, it will wait and stay until they've either approved or denied. If it doesn't, it will move on to the next available node. But if I save this and go back to here, what I've now got, just looking at these first three, I have told the system if the matching status is matched over or part, then run this one. I've then told it if the supplier is equal to electric company, run this one. Then I've got my direct invoice. Now on my direct invoice route, what I've got in here is told it if the matching status is equal to no purchase order reference. Now what I will probably want to do is just have a think about which order these are going to run in. Because if when I am submitting an invoice that's for my electric company, if I want that to always go to the training workflow, I need to make sure that the training workflow is first in that list, so that the system will look and ask, is it that electric company, yes or no? If not, it will then move on. So you've got to be careful as to how you order these. Put the very specific criteria at the top of the list, and then have very broad, wider range criteria at the bottom. That way you're ensuring you're capturing all of the intricate criterion transactions first, and then if it can't find any homes to go to, it will then kind of work its way through and should be picked up by the workflow that it needs to. Now, obviously, what I've got running alongside this is my catch-all workflow sitting in here for all transaction types. And so this is the default workflow that I can then tell the system, if you can't find anything to go to this workflow instead. And in here, I'm just saying, go to Simon. So that's the way that we would stop the system from auto approving everything. But what this would then mean is if I have a look at the invoice workflows again, what I can also then do is if I go through, I've got a hide for selection option. So if I go through and just hide these for selection, and this is where I'm going to regret having created so many examples, but I'm just going to go through and hide them. What that is going to do in the background is effectively make it so that we are only seeing a submit button. We're asking the system to take care of all of everything in the background based on the approval selectors. So I'll just reduce that list a tiny bit. I'm sure you'll get the gist of what it is that we're doing. But if I now go back to that transaction, what you'll see is that we've now got a submit button. It was this one here, wasn't it? And if I click on the submit button, that's just going to go straight off to the workflow like so. No need to make any decisions, no need to choose anything. It has submitted that automatically for me. What I also have the ability to do is if I am wanting to give the users a little bit of control, we can specify, we can leave the workflows to be visible and just leave them sitting there. So you can see I still have the option to click on the upward arrow, but I've only got these three options available to me because these three are currently set to be visible. But if I go and just change those, then it would literally be a submit button that they have, and we're asking the system to do all of the decisions for us. I'll just do my fast track, hide. The next one was CapEx and hide, and the next one is our training and hide there. So as I said, It's important if you do have this switched on, you will have to come into your workflows. You will have to put the selection criteria to tell the system under what circumstances you would like that workflow to be run. But once it's all up and running, done and dusted, if I go back into this transaction now, you'll see it just says submit. I've got no upward arrow button because all my workflows are hidden. It's taken all the decision out of having to have the user decide. It's all being driven in the background. So that is the new approval selector setting that we have brought in. So before we jump into any questions, I just want to quickly mention the Compleat ecosystem. So it's our built-in network that connects businesses with trusted providers across a huge range of industries, whether you're looking for office supplies, financial solutions, or specialized services. The ecosystem, it makes it seamless to find, connect with, and buy from the best suppliers without all the usual hassle. And what you see here is a small snapshot of the suppliers available through our platform. And obviously there's Enterprise Rent-A-Car, who are kindly sponsoring this session for us today. Just to make you aware, for those who are familiar with the ecosystem, you'll notice that the banner it used to show with has been replaced with details of the expense management. Obviously, there's another webinar on that on the website. Feel free to go and have a look at that. Ecosystem's been moved to a tile down here, so that's how you would access ecosystem through there. Lovely. So let's just see if we've got any questions at all that have come through. Just bring up my questions and answer pad. And okay, so got a question here. Can workflows be copied across to other entities, or do you have to create the new workflows in each entity? Unfortunately, for the time being, it's still a case of creating workflows at an entity level. However, what we do have now is the ability, when we are in a particular workflow, if I just go into my orders workflow, for example, if you've got the situation whereby you wanted to have, let's say you've got your orders workflow, which is going to budget heads and it's going to then department heads, etc. If you are looking at the invoicing side, if it's an exact match, then you're happy just to have, say, final finance check, or maybe go to the person who raised the order as a kind of that pseudo receipting. But if it was an overmatch, you want to repeat the orders route for it to get that over budget expenditure. What we can do is we can take our orders route and we can go to actions and then duplicate. And it will ask us, obviously, for the name. So I could say overmatch, give it a button name of over, and we can change the transaction type to say invoice and credit notes. And if I duplicate that, it's going to create it, copy everything, but create it as a invoices and credit notes, and it will appear in the drop down appropriately. So unfortunately, for the time being, no way to copy between entities, but you can copy and choose the workflow type that it needs to go into. So I've got another question. Last newsletter said Compleat are introducing a bulk approval. When will that be available? That is quite soon. That is imminently. I am hoping that we're going to be running another lunch and learn session on that quite shortly. So obviously watch this space. Can't see any other questions come in at the moment, which is fine. But obviously, if you think of anything that that does crop up after this session, feel free to drop us a line or reach out to support. But as I said, if you would like to use this new piece of functionality, which I've already deployed to a couple of customers and it's working incredibly well for them, just be aware that obviously, as I said, contact support to activate it. You will need to go and add in the criteria for the selector as a first port of call, and then make sure you've got the workflows in the correct order as to how you'd like them to work. Fantastic. So that just leaves me to say thank you ever so much for attending. Quite a quick, short, sharp session. I hope it's been of use. Keep an eye out for the communications that are going to be coming out with regards to the next Lunch and Learn session. If you've got any other questions in the meantime, obviously there's the support help desk, or there is the success team at success@completesoftware.com, or obviously contact us through LinkedIn. Many thanks for all your time and attention, and I hope you find the new feature of use. Speak to you soon. Thanks. Bye.